Today's episode of Locked On Guardians, we're going to have 24 minutes of silence in honor of the Guardians' 24 scoreless innings in the playoffs. You've watched 26 innings of Guardians playoff baseball. You've watched 24 of them be scoreless. Will you watch and listen to 24 minutes of silence on today's podcast? Let's see.
Tanner Bagger, the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a somber edition of Locked On Guardians. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, please. Your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 of bonus bets. Biggest bonus they've ever given. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today.
Just counting down the minutes of silence. We're at 1 minute, 23 minutes to go. And now I've just spoken, so now it's 24 minutes to go still of silence on today's show.
Okay, we're kidding. Intro. I am Jeff Ellis. I talk about baseball on the internet. I used to write about baseball on the internet.
Yeah, me too. I read about baseball on the internet. I have written about baseball on the internet. My name's Justin Latta. And here we are. Who would have thought? Talking about the Guardians in a playoff series against the Detroit Tigers in 2024. Never would have thought that. Never would have thought after all of the screaming and yelling or debating all year about the team starting rotation, would be sitting here saying the offense is the problem. I guess if we would have said this back in like May or June, we would have said, do the Guardians have enough starting pitching to get through the playoffs? And really they have enough offense. And unfortunately, the big thing in game 3 was no offense, but also a lot of decisions. Jeff and I are on very different ends of the fences here.
Yes.
I generally think managers and coaches either get too much credit or they get too little credit. I never know which way to assign it. Because at the end of the day, if you put your player in an advantageous spot or they come through, the manager looks smart. And if the player fails, the manager looks stupid, but the player somehow is absolved of all the issues they have, their flaws. Like the player is perfect. It was just the manager all along, clearly. At the end of the day, what wins and loses games is the players executing or not executing. I mean, are we blaming Emmanuel Clase or Stephen Vogt for pitching Emmanuel Clase in the 9th inning? No, because that's what he expected to do, and it didn't come through. David Fry didn't come through. I just think there's a fine line between saying a manager or a coach is an idiot or he's a genius, and some of that has to do with inches, which is what matters in postseason baseball. The Guardians, by looking at a lot of metrics, I know no one's going to want to hear this, but the Guardians had chances to score runs in game 3, just like they did in game 2, and a couple of inches one way or the other. We're talking about, it's probably still a 3-2 loss, let's be honest, but we're talking about a much different game. The Guardians had some runs on the board, and it's a much different game. So I think it's just a matter of inches, and I think it's the same thing when it comes to managerial decisions. I don't fully agree with all the decisions, but I also think that there's a little bit too much criticism heaped on that being the crux of the game in general.
Yeah, this is where we disagree, and we have a strong disagreement. We're late recording because of our disagreement. My general view,
I almost quit, like the Guardians' offense. No,
my general view is, and this is where I disagree with Justin, is that Kyle Manzardo was your best hitter over the last month. I know that was only against righties for the most part, but he was one of your strongest hitters. You're having a hard time getting offense, and you have essentially 2 guys on the bench you have any faith in. So I just don't love pulling the trigger that quickly, because then there's nothing for them to fear. Like, David Fry has hit lefties really well after bottoming out in July and maybe even a little bit into August. He did recover. I know this was not the best game for him. There was some bad luck in that final at bat, but I just don't, when you take away all the, I'll use Justin's words against him when he wanted David Fry to only be a platoon hitter. When you take away the threat of him on the bench, it just weakens what you can do. And by pulling out everyone, that's the kind of the situation you're in. And honestly, like, I think, so for me, I just didn't love that. And even more so, don't know if I want to say more. See, here's the thing. In one situation, Manzardo has been, like I said, one of your top hitters over the last month and a half, and he's barely played now, and that stinks. And the other one, maybe the worst hitter on this team over the last month and a half, has been John Kenzie Noel. So you're also pulling him and getting him more at bats. I just think for me, I want to preach patience, and like the other discussion we had before we came on the air is the idea of like you don't want to have too many changes to how you approach things. And he just kind of went all in really quickly. And for me, that's not the right call, because then, it makes it easier for them to line up the rest of the pitching for the rest of the game. There's not real threats that they're going to go get another guy. And I would also just like to, in very bottom line, right now where we are with the deep first base DH situation, I think you're going to get more production out of Manzardo versus righties and lefties combined than you will from Fry versus righties and lefties. I think the overall package right now, if you're talking about what you're getting versus right-handed and left-handed pitching, I have more faith in Manzardo because how bad Fry's numbers were against righties. And I mean, the other thing I think you have to put on the table here is like, you and I are both pretty sure he's going to need Tommy John surgery. That's something we've been thinking for a while. That's why he's not played in the field. Because let's be honest, I'm sorry, I got really loud there. I apologize for that. Justin! No, I'm kidding. If we're being honest here, and I did again, so I can't say the word honest. If he was healthy, then it probably would have been Fry starting in right field. Like, instead of going to Herter there, they would have probably delayed it. Like, he would have been the right field. I have that right? He was in right. So he probably would have been the right field over Brennan. Like, we probably would have had that situation. And that's kind of what stinks here. And just to throw this out there before I give Justin a chance to speak, and I know there are people out there telling me to be quiet already who want to hear Justin counteract my particular foolishness in this one. I saw it throw out there last year when Ohtani had his Tommy John issue. We're pretty sure he didn't pitch again after August 23rd. His WRC plus was 112, which sounds fantastic, but he was at a 180 before that. And Bryce Harper, the year that he had his issue that required Tommy John, he had a 169 weighted runs created plus in the first half and 84 in the second. So it can affect hitting. Fry has still hit lefties incredibly well. It certainly doesn't make it easier. And that's likely why he's not playing. Hasn't played in the field at all because he can't throw the ball. But I think for me personally, I want to wait. I want to keep my flexibility. I don't want to just jump into that situation. And I want Manzardo to get those opportunities because right now he's a guy I believe in.
I think that I think you could say it's a little premature when he did it, but the fact is Manzardo was going to only face a right-hander one time, and it was going to be Keter Montero. He was never going to face another right-handed pitcher if things played out right for Detroit. They had three lefties, okay? So they had Montero the first time through. The second time through, they had Brant Herter in. He was going to go the bulk. Unlikely that Manzardo was. They were going to either leave Herter in against Manzardo at second time, or if he stayed in, or they were going to go to Gunther, or they were going to go to. I guess they weren't going to go to Holt until later, but they had enough right-handers to spread it out where they could have easily just gone to lefties against Manzardo. So he had one shot against the right-handed pitcher. So I don't have a problem with where he started, where he played. I mean, the other they don't have enough balance to really make this work. That's the problem, is that they're lacking balance. The other way you can make it work, we talked about this too, and it wasn't going to happen, is hitting Jose second and hitting Manzardo third with Thomas fourth and Naylor fifth. That way, if they bring in a lefty to face Manzardo, they got to probably deal with Thomas behind him, and you split up the lefties that way. But Jose doesn't want to hit second, and that's that. So I think that's the way you could have counteracted it. And if David Fry's healthy, this looks a whole lot different. Maybe if David Fry's healthy, not only is he starting at a position, whether it's catcher or right field, he's probably just hitting better in general. The dude did crush righties early on, and he came back to earth, and I'm not surprised by that. I feel like with elbow injuries, this whole game's not on David Fry, by the way. And it's also, again, I'm saying crushing Stephen Vogt for doing that is silly, because he picked the spot with David Fry and he didn't come through against the lefty. So that one at bat against Brant Herter in the second inning or the third inning, Fry doesn't get a hit. Didn't work out. If he comes through that in that inning and gets a hit, we're thinking, okay, great move to go to Fry here and attack the lefty. And then he ends up facing a right at the end of the game. And this is not really a process. This is more results over process because he's facing Bo Brisky at the end of the game. But he has that liner to third that Verily makes a nice play on, and he's just out and had an 880 expected batting average. And if that just gets through somehow for a double, we're talking about David Fry going 2 for 3, and no one's saying, oh, Stephen Vogt's an idiot for bringing in David Fry, because he went 2 for 3, even though the last at bat there is, again, more results over process. And like I said, that comes down to player execution more than it does decision making, I think. They haven't trusted Manzardo against lefties in the majors this year at all. They have shown trust in Fry against righties. And we kind of had the debate too off there about doing things different in the postseason. Like, obviously your pitching decisions are different in the postseason. In the regular season, you're 100% right. They, in that third time or second time to the order, they probably would not have pulled Manzardo against a lefty. They would have let him hit and then wait for that opportunity later in the game. So I can understand that argument too. But the thing is, Manzardo did not face lefties in the majors in the regular season for the most part. Fry, for better or for worse, faced both and had some success against righties. So the other problem is, again, he's hurt. And if he's catching, Austin Hedges isn't your last at bat of the game probably, because he's not in there only in there for defense at that point. Or he's playing right field and you have the option of Noel and Brennan on the bench. That counteracts things a whole lot different. So really, I think what it comes down to is not David Fry or even Stephen Vogt. I guess you can say Vogt to an extent because he completely warped his bench in the second inning. But he had a limited bench to begin with. Your only options were Noel and Martinez. Like, you're not throwing out Schneemann or Hedges as pinch hitters, really. Schneemann's an emergency guy in the postseason, and with the way Brocchio has played, you haven't needed him. So I don't know. I think it's just a very fine line. Like, yeah, you can sit there and say that it was a little early to pull the plug on Manzardo, but the truth is he was only going to face a right-hander one time. And Fry only ended up facing a lefty one time. You could have waited to deploy Fry later in the game with runners on. Maybe it's one of those chances where Brocchio and Kwan are on base and you put Fry in with 2 on it and they have a lefty in. But I think the way those ended up playing out, I think the pitchers that were in at that time had already faced the 3-batter minimum. So if you had pulled Manzardo for Fry, they would have countered with a right-handed pitcher. So I don't know that Cleveland was ever going to get the matchup they wanted there outside of the first inning. That was the one, or the second inning. That was the one chance Cleveland could guarantee that Fry was going to face a lefty most likely, and they took it. So I can't really fault him for that. It didn't work out. Yeah, I just think they took their shot and it didn't work. If guys execute, we're talking about a whole different story. They didn't execute. You can say they burned him a little early. I think the Noel thing was probably more egregious. Noel hasn't given you anything. He had a great game 2 defensively, which is weird to say, but Noel hasn't given you anything offensively since like July, maybe August.
End of August.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So like, I guess you can use his threat on the bench too against a lefty if you want later in the game. I don't really love the idea of having Noel covering the outfield in a game that's a low scoring game in Comerica. It's a huge ballpark. But then again, Noel's given you nothing offensively for over 2 months now. So it really makes no difference to me. But I just think that it comes down to a limited bench and it comes down to execution, and
it
also took a shot and it didn't work.
Also comes down to a degree of luck. I know we'll have Tigers fans saying we're salty with this, but I got to straight say it. Like, expected batting average for Cleveland in this game was 254. Expected batting average for Detroit was sub 200. Like, sometimes you got to be lucky rather than good. And, for Cleveland fans who last year heard us harping about like BABIP regression with Nolan Jones and Will Benson, and by now anyone who's an everydayer of this show, like some of our good friends like Zeev and John, know all about that. But it's like, because baseball is the game that has the largest amount of luck to it of any professional sport. And it's that thing. Like, the Tigers are a very good team. I don't want anyone to sit there and say I'm saying, but in this game you can just look at the numbers and be like, one team ended up having the luck break their way at the right times. One team didn't. It was another close game, and that's why we do have the argument, because when it is that close, it's kind of a coin flip to a degree. With the way things worked out, where that's when you kind of look at it. And I think it's interesting though to see how much the batted ball luck was in Cleveland's favor. It just didn't happen to they didn't get the hits on some hits that were expected batting averages of 700 or 800 typically.
Yeah, the Tigers won game 2 because they have the best pitcher in baseball, and they got one. I'm going to say it. It was a lucky swing. It just wasn't. It was a bad pitch. I guess lucky swing is the wrong way to put it, but it was a bad pitch. They won the game on game 2 because of the best pitcher in baseball, which is not a fluke. Tariq Skubal is ridiculous, and then
Kerry Carpenter he's ridiculous on bad pitches.
Right. He's got to crush that. He should. He's a great hitter.
Yeah.
So they won it with a great hitter taking advantage of a bad pitch, and they won because they have the best pitcher in baseball. And that's good enough in the postseason sometimes.
100%.
Especially when you have a team like the Guardians who are struggling to hit right now. It's not all on. It's certainly not all on Stephen Vogt. It's certainly not all on David Fry. There are other guys who aren't contributing, and there are other guys who are. We'll talk about a couple guys that are. We'll talk about the Guardians can win an elimination game, what their odds are. We'll talk about the pitching matchup, and we'll talk about the keys to game 4. And really, there's just one.
But first, let's talk about Prize Picks. Let's go and see what they think of MLB odds right now. Bo Naylor tomorrow, half a base. I don't know how I feel about that, but with the way that Brian Rocchio has been playing, I kind of like the idea of taking more for half a base for Brian Rocchio tomorrow. I think that is a good call. He has been having an excellent postseason, arguably Cleveland's best hitter outside of Stephen Kwan. So I would say that might be a good call over at Prize Picks. And, when you're looking at Prize Picks, you pick 2 to 6 stat categories and you just pick more or less. It's that easy. And they've introduced flex play, which is the idea that, hey, sometimes not all of your picks have to hit for you to still win. They have deals all the time. We talked about like last month, they were giving away Caleb Williams every week. So you got to pay attention. So look at the bonuses that are popping up. But right now, when you sign up, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. The Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select players and projections up to 25% to provide more value. So download the app, go to the website, use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
The Mets are moving on. Today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Maybe you were in Detroit, or maybe you're from out of state, and you're out of town, and you want to come to Cleveland for Game 5 on Saturday, provided the Guardians win today. Maybe you need to get yourself a hotel in Cleveland for Game 5, and then maybe you want to get a hotel out in Kansas City for the ALCS if the Guardians do the improbable and win 2 straight, or maybe you're tired of the postseason and you want to get away. Booking.com can help you get far away from baseball as well. If you love baseball, maybe you hate baseball right now. Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals, or even a place that doesn't even know baseball exists if you need to get away. That is Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The Mets are in the NLCS. Dodgers and Padres look like they're going to a Game 5. We definitely have a Game 5-4 coming up for the Royals and the Yankees. All of that and more you can catch on Locked On MLB with our pal Sully over at Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeff, the Guardians were 4 for 13 in Game 1 with runners in scoring position. Since that time, they are 1 for 11 in Games 2 and 3. The Tigers aren't much better. Truthfully, they've just gotten a couple of hits when it matters. The Guardians have done nothing. So you said, give credit to the pitching staff. I mean, obviously, Tariq Skubal, we knew what he was going to do. And
It's
then
a good young pen that they put together partway through the year. And AJ Hinch is an excellent manager, and he's really put them out in the best. I think. A lot of people have been weirdly negative about Vogt throughout the year, but we definitely are seeing a situation with a very experienced manager and Hinch is, maybe the best manager in the game. Like there is that degree of it. I think he is in that discussion, and he's been perfect with it.
I mean, it's a good matchup too. They have three lefties, so they can. And Tyler Holton has opened the game. He's closed the game. Every guy in there. This is how they got here. Every guy in their staff.
Everyone but Jason Foley is pitched, who was their closer for part of the year. Right? We haven't seen Foley at all, have we?
Series, right? So they've had every pitcher. I mean, Bo Brisky has been early in games. He's closed games. Will Vest has been all over too. Like they've used guys in every situation. So these guys are ready to pitch, the same as Cleveland's guys. In the bullpen, I mean, Eli Morgan pitched in this one, and he threw a wild pitch and gave up a hit, and it is what it is. Like
it's my fault. You can blame me for that. I was tweeting about how this is his chance to show, so that's my fault. You're talking about how a lot of people have blame in this one. That one's mine.
It was inconsequential in the end what happened with him, and really you were just trying to avoid running up the pitch count of anybody else at that point. So everybody got in the game. The bullpen was just fine. I think Cobb gave you enough. I mean, he wasn't great for a guy who hadn't pitched in over a month. He was fine. They pulled him when they needed to. Sobrowski was fantastic. Cade only threw a couple pitches. Walters was great. Cantillo was great. Or as Brian Anderson kept calling him, Joey Cantillo. The broadcast on this game 3 was kind of weak. I got to be honest. The first 2 games they were fine, but this one was a little bit weak. Jose Ramirez too, like 1 for 10 in this series. He had that defense aided double in game 1. He got intentionally walked in this one, and he had the 1 RBI in game 1. That's been it. He came to the plate in this game twice with runners on and came up empty.
Yeah.
Twice Rocchio and Kwan were on ahead of him, and he was
and he was the pop-up king again, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he had a couple of one hard hit ball, and there was a pop-up, and he got walked in the other one, so it was 1 pop-up. But Fry came in. I'm sorry, Fry. They got Fry out. Bo Brisky got Fry out the second time, or the first time, and then Jose came up with nobody on. But then he came up the second time after Kwan and Rocchio were on, and didn't get it done. So like you need to have Jose Ramirez do better in this series. Like you can't have Jose Ramirez going 1 for 10. They've continued to feed him a large diet of changeups, and he's got some weird numbers against changeups this year. Like I looked it up by weighted on base average. He's hit changeups well, but his expected weighting on base doesn't hold that up. And expected numbers don't always tell the future; they tell what should have happened. But they're kind of bearing out right now that changeups do kind of make him struggle, and it has in this game. Or it has in this series, and really Detroit too is out small ball Cleveland, right? Like they got the runner over early on, they got him in on a sac fly from Vierling. The wild pitch helped out with the second run from Morgan. That was the third run. Sorry, they have gotten runners over and got him in the last 2 games. I mean, Kerry Carpenter had 3 run bombs, so it's just this game. So Detroit out small ball in this game. Cleveland had 1 chance to kind of do that. That was Jimenez early on trying to bunt. We were texting about that, and he failed to get him over, and they never got the runs in that inning. I mean, credit to Brian Rocchio. He's had a great series outside of Kwan, who's got, 7 hits now, or 6 hits in this series. Brian Rocchio, I think, has 3 hits, including a double and a walk, and he's continued to get on, and he's done a good job turning the lineup over number 1 and having them have opportunities, and it just hasn't. And he came close to a double in game 1 too, or came close to a homer in game 1. So he's had a great series. They just got to get more out of Jose Ramirez. And Lane Thomas had a base hit in this one, but he had the home run. It's everybody. When you go 24 innings out of 26 not scoring runs, it's not on one person, but you need your big guys to come through, and that's what happened. In game 2 for the Tigers, their big guy, Kerry Carpenter, came through. Lane Thomas was kind of the big guy in game 1 for Cleveland, and we haven't really seen Jose. Maybe game 4 is Jose's signature game. I said it for 2, and I said it for 3, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe he'll get it in game 4. I don't know. They definitely need it if they're going to win.
Yeah. I mean, I guess here's the bigger problem, though, is just like, I was talking about this. It's like those numbers aren't good, but Jose in general has not been a postseason hitter. Like, he's rocking a sub 630 OPS and over 140 plate appearances. through his career in the postseason. Like, for whatever reason, I mean, that's a significant. It's not, it's still a smaller sample, but it's still interesting to look at that data and be like, Jose just doesn't hit in the postseason so far, and one can take a run with it how you want to. This could get me in trouble, but for whatever reason, he's just been a different animal in the postseason, and unfortunately, he just hasn't shown up for Cleveland in this series. But most guys haven't. You have a lot of players who are just not performing well, but it is kind of interesting. Like, I was watching it and just thinking, like, okay, this series isn't going well. How has he done overall? And the answer is not great. So yeah, you need Jose to step up. I mean, Riley Green even knocked in a run today, right? So like, Detroit's big guys have done big things. They've got the two big bats, and then guys like Parker Meadows hit much better in the second half. Cleveland right now we saw them go run hot and run cold. Unfortunately, they picked a wrong time to run cold.
NFL fans, you can get started this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're placing your bets, checking over what's looking things today for Game 4 for the Guardians and the Tigers. So even though the 2-1 leader in the series in Game 4 at home goes 81% of the time, even more to the home team and the winner of Game 3, the Guardians are actually still favored by 1.5 runs. That's a good thing. They believe in Tanner Bybee. Somehow they believe in the Guardians offense. I don't know about that. The over-under on runs is 6.5. I took the under in Game 1, so I probably will get that wrong in Game 2 with Tanner Bybee. We'll see what happens in this one. I would take the under, but you never know. FanDuel, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Yeah, I'm not going to get into like Jose's postseason history because I think there's such a degree of randomness every year. Like, Jose had a great postseason in 2022. He had the big home run against the Rays, and then he was good against the Yankees. And then 2016, which is forever ago at this point, which it doesn't even matter. He was good in 2016, and then the rest of it was just one series. So it's a lot of randomness. So I really feel like postseason success, considering how spread it out it is for him.
Some guys though have like very consistent data overall.
I know you could say that, but I think each year is its own animal, and there's so many things that could go wrong in the course of, like you're saying, okay, he's got 150 playoff plate appearances. That's great, but each of those are a section of like 10 to 20 at bats, and some of them are 8 years ago, and some of them are 2 years ago. So like, I don't see how you can string all those little pieces together to really come up with a large sample, because again, 2016, great. We know what happened in 17 and 18. He was great in 2020. He was great in 2020. We're saying we don't take 2020 seriously, so you're taking that out there. And then 2022, he was great. So I just think it's all little bits of random bits of data versus, because they're cobbled together over several years. So I have a hard time really saying
it's a sample, though. I mean, it is what we consider a usable sample.
But it's one thing. It's not a consistent sample. It's not like saying it's April to September. It's again, chunks of 20 and 30 at bats over 8 years, and players change and matchups change. And, a lot of, it's very hard to piece those together and call it a real set of data versus anything that's happening in a given moment. I don't think it's an accurate snapshot is what I'm saying, because all of the data is chunked up over long periods of time, and they're not consistent. So I don't know. And again, the Tigers have done a good job against him. Jeff, the Guardians have not won an elimination game since Game 6 of the World Series in '97. They won the series against the Rays a year ago, but their backs are up against the wall. The last time they won a game where their season was win or go home for the Guardians was '97. They have not won an elimination game since then. So it's tough. I think Tanner Bybee is the right guy on the mound for it. Honestly, like, Game 4 to me is I do think they can win Game 4. My question here is, can they win Game 5? Like, I know they haven't won a game where their backs against the wall since I was 8 years old, but I just have a huge question whether or not. I mean, it all comes down to hitting. It's not even has to do with Tanner. It has to do with hitting. I think if they hit the ball, they're going to win Game 4 no matter what. If they score 4 runs in Game 4, they're going to win. If they score 4 runs in Game 4, they're going to win. I don't know if they can do that. I think they can. I just don't think the odds are good for Game 5 when they come back to Cleveland if they win that game. Here's the other problem too from Sarah Langs, who's always good at this stuff. If you're looking at the odds, in the current 2-2-1 format of the ALDS, the DS teams leading 2-1 and playing Game 4 at home have won the series 81% of the time. Now, the Mets just proved that, and that percentage goes up after Wednesday. Of those 25 series wins, 18 came at home in Game 4. So the odds are with Detroit, whether or not whoever's on the mound. We don't know who's pitching for Detroit yet. It looks like it's likely Reese Olson. Whether or not they decide to put in a lefty and go to Reese Olson in the second inning, like Game 1, maybe. I don't know. I'm just whatever they do, they're going to do their best. They're going to manipulate whatever Cleveland wants to do between David Fry and Kyle Manzardo. So I think the good news is Manzardo should get more than one at bat in Game 4, right? Because if it's a bulk guy, if there's an opener and it's a lefty, put Manzardo in there because Reese Olson is going to get the bulk of the work, whether it's the first inning or the fifth inning or whatever, third through the fifth. At some point, Reese Olson's going to go through the order twice. So that means Kyle Manzardo should be in the lineup, but who knows? If it's Reese Olson to start, he's going to likely go 2 times through the order if he out of the first inning. So you want Manzardo in there. So maybe this is the chance. I don't know.
When you're looking at how the rest of this could play out, it's like, I appreciate that the Guardians tried a novel approach to win games without scoring runs. Unfortunately, it has not paid off for them. And I just, it's the same inconsistencies we've seen all year. And let's be honest, they had the 4th worst offense in baseball in the second half. Detroit, by the way, had the 6th worst by OPS. So it's not like either of these teams were powerhouses. For Cleveland, though, what allowed them to get through it was Lane Thomas was on a heater and Kyle Manzardo was on a heater, and those two guys really helped carry them when everyone else was down. Right now, you've got Kwan on a heater and Roki on a heater. The downside is those guys aren't home run hitters. Like they're not generating quite the extra base hits you need. You need someone who's going to step up. You need something to happen. And in the grand scheme of it all, the nice thing too was back when those other two guys were on the heater, you were coming off of Noel just being like, I feel like his second at bat, like that hit was one that would have gone out when he was at peak. Like when he had the right launch angle, not enough velocity. I know I sound like a defeatist. I'm going to still watch the game. Hope they're going to win. Hope they have a chance. But my other concern too was just those defensive miscues today just made me, I don't know, it felt like they were either pressing or it was just weird to see this team kind of do a lot of things. Like, you said in your short, they got out guards balled by Detroit, but they also then weren't the traditional team they weren't the team with the defense that was going to choke you off. They didn't do a lot of the things that allowed them to be successful. And that makes me a little pessimistic. If I didn't think they had a chance, I probably wouldn't be able to watch. I'm still going to watch. I'm still going to be hopeful, but I am, because Reese Olson is tough. You had to win the chaos games.
Yeah, you had to. Yeah, sorry, I just saw something on Twitter from Hurricane Milton, and it's not great. Everybody in Game 4 should be available. You got Tanner. I think everybody. I don't know how much they're going to want to use Eric Sabrowski. He pitched 28 pitches for Detroit. I mean, Brant Herter's probably down, and obviously, Tarek Skubal's not going to pitch. Everybody else is available for them. For Cleveland, the only question we have right now is Tim Herron. Tim Herron's had back-to-back outings where his command has been not great, and the velocity has been down his last. He's normally like 94 to 96. He's been more like 92 to 90 to 92. So like I'm a little concerned about Tim Herron right now. And if you're going to use him in game 4 against the lefty, and I think you need to, and because of the Kerry Carpenter of it all, you're going to have to do it hopefully in a spot where there's 2 outs and he only has to face Kerry Carpenter. Because I don't know if you can go or you force Justin Henry Malloy into the game. I don't know if you can count on him for 4 or 5 outs. Like, I don't even know if you can count on him for 3 outs. It's a little shaky right now with Tim Herron. I'm a little concerned. Joey Cantillo's never gone back-to-back days before, so like I don't know if you can use him. Like, he's never done that before. He didn't pitch. I mean, in theory you could, because he only threw 15 pitches, but he's also never had to do it before. But Gavin Williams didn't pitch. We thought we were going to see Gavin in this game. I would imagine that at this point, unless you absolutely need him in game 4, I guess you're saving him for game 5. Like, because the ideal script here is Tanner 2 times through the order. Hopefully that's 5 innings. And then you're going to Cade, to Gaddis, to Clase, and then you're going to have to figure out how you're going to mix and match Herron and Sobrowski if he's available, because that's the problem with Herron right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is we know Detroit is much weaker against lefties, and they kind of might have blown through all of their available lefties because of Herron. Like I said, Herron just might be tired. Sobrowski threw a lot of pitches, important pitches, and then they had Cantillo. Like, that's kind of the killer for me. It's like, just let Cantillo throw some innings then. Like, if you're gonna do it, maybe try to save someone else, because they might enter tomorrow not really having a lefty you can rely on.
That is scary. Yeah. Morgan is supposed to be kind of a lefty neutralizer with his changeup, but he struggled in this one a little bit too. So like, you might be just hoping for 6 outs from Cade Smith.
Yeah, and that might be the situation where, while we're all getting stuck in the weeds on the whole pinch hitting thing, the bigger mistake might be how they deployed lefties in this one.
Very possible.
It's like using Cantillo at that point in the game might have been the wrong call.
I don't know. Who are you going to use though? Like,
I don't know.
You've kind of used everyone at that point. You don't want to use Clase. Gaddis was up. You already burned through Herron and Morgan and Walters. So like, you didn't have anybody else. Like, you could have gone to Gavin there, but then I guess in theory, you're saying if Gavin goes, then he would have had 4 and
Thank
5.
Goodness they didn't listen to us and took 12 arms, because they've needed all of them.
Well, there was no other lefty though. Didn't matter.
I know. I'm just saying in general, like they've been,
we missed Sam Henches.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So yeah, and as you were saying too, the guards ball thing, like there was no home run hit in this one, but like the two biggest swings in this series have been Kerry Carpenter's homer and Lane Thomas's homer. 3 run homers. Nobody hit a home run in this one, but those were kind of the game changers. Obviously, more so Carpenter's, because that was the only 3 runs of the game. But that's why it's so hard to win in the postseason. Where like you had Quan and Rocchio get back-to-back hits, right? That's great. But if you can't come up with a back-breaking hit, it's very hard to string 3-4 hits together in a row in the postseason, especially when you're facing 6 different relievers, or you're facing Tarek Skubal. Like, that's who you're facing. You're either facing elite arms like Tarek Skubal and Garrett Cole, or I know Chris Sale didn't pitch in the postseason, but that caliber of arm, and it's tough to string hits together, or you're facing a new reliever every inning, and that guy is going 100%, and he's got great stuff, and you're not going to get a chance to look at him again. So that's why like you're looking for one big blow on a mistake, and it's hard. So somebody for Cleveland, if they're going to win in game 4, has to come up with a mistake, whether it's Jose Ramirez or Josh Naylor. Someone's going to have to hit the ball over the fence for Cleveland in game 4 to win. Like, we're not going to give any other keys to the game series or keys to the game in game 4. It's hit, score 4 runs, win the game, and then you come back to Cleveland on Saturday and you pray to God Tarek Skubal doesn't wake up feeling his best and somehow throws a meatball to somebody and it's a home run again. So it is what it is. So we'll be back with you tomorrow to recap game 4 and hopefully preview game 5.
Yes, we will. And I just want to throw this out there. We got some time here at the end. I just want to say this, like, it's been a heck of a fun year. For me, this is a top 5 fun year of Guardians baseball. No matter what happens, I think sometimes like enjoying the journey, having the top overall pick, going from a team with low expectations to a team that had the greatest bullpen of my life. There is a lot of fun things with this team, no matter what happens. I don't want it to sound like a postmortem. I'm tired to a small degree of the prisoners of the moment who just want to say everything's terrible. Like, enjoy the team, enjoy the run. Many of you are also Browns fans. Like, if you're a Browns fan, you should know how enjoyable and rare postseason chances are. So just enjoy the fact that every time you make the postseason. So I just want to throw that out there. I just want to say, like, keep that degree of positivity and enjoyment, even if the ends aren't what we want. It was still a fantastic season, no matter what, and there's still a chance for it to be what we want. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review. Smash that thumbs up. It'll make you feel better. I promise. Though I can't guarantee it, but I'll promise it. Thank you all again for being here, joining us. We really enjoyed all the new names and faces. And as I always end every show, go, Guardians, go. Let's take this one to game 5.